need to realize that the whole food industry and everything that we eat has been heavily commercialized for profit. And I got to work in those kitchens, and then I saw the amount of waste that went into the bins in the kitchen, like especially at the end of the night. There was these massive black bins with like tens, like hundreds of kilos of food every single day.
Differences you noticed on how different cultures approach to food waste in the kitchen?
I'm not blaming anyone, I'm just saying that this is the default way of thinking that we have in the industry.
And how shall we change the way that we think about food?
We just really need to stop dividing products into byproducts and main products, because it's us to decide that.
Where do you get your creativity from? What?
From the bin.
Vojtech, welcome to this podcast. I already personally follow you already for some time on LinkedIn for normally, but I also see that you are on Instagram very active in sharing, let's say, experience and creativity to others. I will not dive too much into it. I will leave that one to you. And you're inspired a lot with your work and your posts that you share with us. I can only think, and what I see is talent. Like, I don't think that everyone can do it what you are doing right now, but how do you see yourself?
How do I see myself? I see myself as a chef, first of all. Even though I spend less and less time in the kitchen these days, because there is a lot of other work, but I still see myself as a chef, first of all. And that's all I can say. I mean, I'm just cooking.
Yeah, I mean, you're not just normal cooking, right? For a lot of like as you see it, you for a lot of people to get get a bit of an introduction. Vojtech shows exactly what you can do with just a single product and all kind of applications that you can make from it. And right, Vojtech?
Yeah, you know, I use ingredients and I use them in many different ways, and I like to explore that what is it that is possible with any single ingredient, that what we can do with it. And I think that there is so many opportunities that can be done with anything that we work with. And yeah, I think it's something that should be pretty much standard in the industry.
Do you become interested in the kitchen already when you were younger? Is something that you've been always interested in? Or because I know, for example, my father just became really interested in the cooking when he started to have to cook for me and my brothers. So it was for you already from the start yourself cooking, or it was a little bit more accidental?
It was completely accidental because, you know, despite the fact that I think like every one of us has grown around food in some way, but it's never been like the center of my attention. Like, I was raised in a small village in I would call it an independent household, where we had our own garden and growing our own ingredients and produce, had some animals at the back as well. So it was fairly independent. And back when I was growing up, like there was literally no supermarket in the town, in the closest town where we were living. There was no supermarket, so you had to be completely self-sufficient. And if you run out of food mid-winter, then you talk to the neighbors or someone who had some food in storage, basically, you know. So that was normal back then. There was nothing strange about it. The first time I saw a supermarket, I was like 10-year-old or something. So,
but how is it now then, stepping into, like, you travel around the world and then you can step into, like, that's something I would personally love a lot, that if I go to another country, the first thing or one of the first things I will do is like get into the supermarket, see what kind of foods they offer.
Me too. I do that. And then I walk in the supermarket and I see that abundance of ingredients. But we need to realize that the whole food industry and everything that we eat has been heavily commercialized for profit. So, you know, like, you see very different things there than you were seeing like 25 years ago, for example. So, like, for us, the idea of buying fresh produce, like to go buy vegetables from a store where you don't know where it is from, like, that was an absurd idea for us. You know, like, we will not, but, you know, like, eventually it has become the norm, it has become the standard. So there always was this kind of underlying connection to food for me, but I don't think that I was aware of it until fairly recently, maybe. because I got into the whole cooking and everything I do. It wasn't intentional from the beginning. It was a random choice, like, yeah, whatever. Let's do that. Let's study that. And even in the first years of me working in a kitchen as chef, it wasn't a love at the first sight. I didn't love it immediately. That like, oh, this is what I want to do. I found it quite like, yeah, whatever. I wasn't really into it as much. But as I progressed through kitchens that were I don't want to call it better, but maybe better in their approach to the food and better in cooking, where there were chefs who were like deeply passionate about what they were doing, and it kind of infected me and showed me the way that it can be and perhaps that it should be done in the industry.
So you started with the cooking maybe as a side job, no? You were mentioning, or as a thing, and then all of a sudden you discovered that
I studied as a chef. I studied as a chef.
you studied as a chef.
Yeah, I studied as a chef, so it was always my full-time job. It's pretty much the only thing I have done in my life for work, apart from a few random small things. But it was always my full-time job from the very beginning, and I was lucky to have apprenticeships abroad in hotels during my studies, which kind of gave me the opportunity to get jobs abroad more easily at my age that I was back then, 18, 19, so I was able to get a job. I was able to learn the language. I was able to move abroad. I was able to pick up skills faster than I would have if I would stay where I was born, basically. So that kind of, certainly it's kind of fast tracked me in some way in the industry to pick up skills faster, to travel more, to explore more. And once I got on that train that was like taking me around the world, to sort of speaking, then I just got hungry. I just got hungry for more.
And in this process for you of getting more involved and more interested and loving more cooking and kitchen, what was the moment also that you started to link it to the possibility of increasing sustainability by means of cooking?
It took me quite a few years to actually come to that kind of conclusion that this is what I like and this is what I want. But like looking back at it, like retrospectively, I can see that there was a connection, or that the prompt came from the fact, or from the way that I was raised, basically, the way that I grew up, like appreciating every bit of food, like being completely self-sufficient and growing everything ourselves made you appreciate that food naturally. So like waste wasn't even a thing. So when now I think back, I could say that we have been like a very low waste, sustainable vegetarian family. That would be the term that we use now. Like back then, it was the normal way. Like we didn't know all these terms to use, so we just lived our lives.
Yeah.
And like when I got to work in those kitchens, and then I saw the amount of waste that went into the bins in the kitchens, like especially at the end of the night, that there was these massive black bins with like tens, sometimes hundreds of kilos of food every single day. And that idea was completely absurd to me, like thinking back about the ways that I was raised. That was completely absurd. And then like it just kind of got my attention. And then you start thinking about it, like, we run a business around food. Like we buy food with the intention to resell it. So that's how we make the business work. And then why is the main product of our business in the bin? Like it like for economical reasons, it doesn't make sense. Like what can we do about that? And once I started realizing these things, I just got like more interested in that. I don't know exactly like step by step what was going on in there. It took me some time to actually come to some conclusion, but I know that I started coming across other chefs and restaurants around the world who were doing something about it, or like who were running their like little zero waste operations and had more ideas. And I was always very interested in fine dining world as well. And when I saw those applications at those high level kitchens, then it really got me hooked, basically. It really got me interested in that. And it was just a natural progress, I guess, that it has led me to work under chefs, or under a particular chef who was very focused on all the products that we now call byproducts, that we call these things that we don't use, and it was a very high level kitchen. And it had nothing to do with zero waste or sustainability. It was done purely for the culinary creations and in search of flavor. Like we've been looking for flavor at places we haven't looked at before. We've been looking at stems of the ingredients, the leaves, the fish skin, the all random parts that usually ends up in a bin, and what the culinary opportunity is in all of those parts. And the word zero waste or food waste has never been mentioned in the kitchen. It wasn't about that. That wasn't the primary focus. Although, like naturally, it has been achieved as well. Because if you are in search of flavors at those places, then you will eventually reduce your food waste because that's the only option. And when I saw that it can be done at such a high level, at such place, then I thought to myself, like, there must be a way to replicate that. Like, there is no way that any other kitchen cannot do this, but I was doing it every day. I was in the kitchen, we've been all doing it. So why could not a kitchen do it where there probably even isn't such a high pressure to produce like a Michelin star level food, so it gets kind of easier in some ways. So I thought to myself, like, there must be a way of doing that. There must be something. And like from that point on, I just got really clear on like, I don't ever want to do anything else. Like it became like impossible for me to go back to like the normal standard that we have, like, oh, trim this, trim that, waste this, waste that, just use whatever the main part is and use all these terms, I like that it became impossible for me. I just kind of went my own lane from that point.
But with other kitchens, you mainly mean then just the average consumer kitchen.
There is so many types of restaurants, like you don't have to be 3-star restaurants. There is so many good restaurants and high quality restaurants, but there is no pressure to produce a 10-course tasting menu with like tiny details and small things where you really need to be careful how the dish looks and the visual aspect of the food and the perfect flavor profile and all of these things. Like you can run a high quality restaurant where it doesn't mean it has to be a pub level. It doesn't mean that it has to be a Michelin star level as well. It can be a hotel, it can be anything. Like by now I have realized that there are these common aspects that are shared between every single kitchen in the world. It doesn't matter where that is. Like as long as you cook with fresh food and you prepare food on site, that it means that you can reduce your food waste and you can do something about that.
And like, so you saw it as an opportunity, but for others, like let's say it was not a normal thing to reduce their waste or look at it differently. It must be a certain reason why that wasn't like in that place, right? Why they did it that way, and why also they didn't want to tackle it and change it, because maybe that will increase their cost, or there was something behind it that would affect the taking the step. In your journey, what did you figure out? Like, what were the reasons mainly that the restaurants or the hotels or anywhere where they have the kitchens, they didn't took the step to reduce their waste or look at differently on products? Let's say it like that.
It's the mindset, because we think that we don't have that much food waste. We don't measure it. We don't do anything about it. We don't look at it, or we accept it as a normal. We write off 10% in food costs. That is the wastage by default, and that's it. We don't think about it as a thing that can be tackled or that there is a financial opportunity in it. And we are also, particularly chefs, are biased towards how much food waste we really have in our kitchens. We tend to seriously underestimate the amount. So we think like, oh, like that's not much, like I waste a little bit here and there, but we need to keep in mind that many restaurants operate 365 days in a year, and that little bit here and there can be €100,000 difference at the end of the year. So there is a lot, and there is just there is so much misconceptions and bias around how much food waste we have, how to reduce it, and what does it really take to reduce it. And then we go and then we slip down this slippery road of like, I'm too busy, I don't have time, I don't have space, I don't have this, blah, 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 this and that. Well, none of that is required. None of that is required. And I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying that this is the default way of thinking that we have in the industry, because we have been doing certain things for a long period of time, most of us, and we are reluctant to change, as most of the humans are naturally. We are reluctant to change in general, in everything. So when there is what we call a problem that we have with the food waste, we need to realize that that problem is rather an opportunity more so than a problem. So right now I'm wasting perfectly fine ingredients and products that could have been monetized, because I run a business, so that's what I want to do. But yet I'm not doing it. So there is money in my bin and there is opportunity in my bin. And if I'm a chef, then I really care about how my food tastes, and I want to make sure it's as tasty as possible and there is as much flavor as possible on the plate. But yet, if I'm wasting the most nutritious and the most delicious parts of ingredients, which are oftentimes the skins, for example, and the peels or the stems, which contains the most flavor, then that means that I'm counterproductive in my effort because I waste the most delicious, most nutritious parts of the ingredients. So I could do something about that.
When you confront chefs with this,
I don't confront chefs.
You don't confront it.
I don't confront chefs.
But I guess that you have exposed this to other chefs, no? Or
I wouldn't use the word exposed either. I talk about it a lot and I bring it to attention, but I certainly do not push anyone at all, or I do not try to convince anyone about that unless they believe it themselves. I help them see some facts.
You've never had that conversation with a chef about these topics, then?
I have a lot of conversation with chefs almost every day.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, it's because when I mean confronting, I don't mean like pushing them to pursue, but you just tell them about what is the situation now as you see it and how it shall evolve and change. Do you get to see like realization, like moments of eye-opening in them, or like is that something that when you talk about it to others, they agree to you that something can be done in order to change it? Or
there is a lot of that, and there is a lot of realization, because if someone two scenarios, like someone is familiar with my content or has read my book before, for example, or knows what I'm doing, they are more open to that, and the conversation has been opened already in their mind with themselves, for example. So they are kind of know that, okay, like there is this and that, there could be something done. It's not like a brand new information for them anymore. And then sometimes I do like workshops and masterclasses for chefs in person, where the company sends me to do it for their chefs. So those chefs might be unfamiliar with my work or the content that I do. So it's like, it is kind of a brand new information for them then. So then I present them with some of my content and some of my work and solutions for what they are doing. And then most of the times I see this kind of reluctancy or disbelief at the beginning of the masterclass, where you can see the face expressions being like, yeah, whatever, this guy, what is he telling me? Like, I'm sure it's not true, and all of that. But then as you progress through the content and as you show some facts and like talk about how it's been done and how I did it before and the work that I do, and I like to combine it with also some practical things so they can actually see and experience what does it feel like and look like in a kitchen. Almost always there is a shift in like, oh wow, like I had no idea that this could be done, that there is this way, that there is this system, that it can be this simple. Because as I said before, there is a lot of misconceptions that we start with at the beginning. So there are these objections that you need to overcome to actually, for people to be able to hear what is being told about.
Talking about those wow moments, what was for you like more like you worked over Michelin restaurants, so what were for you more like the wow or the important lessons that you took from there that you're still using?
From like these high level restaurants? Well, there's some are related to food waste, but some are not, like if you want to use like food waste related things, then it's the fact that you didn't, it's not, there is, or how would I phrase it? There are some chefs believe that this is not achievable in like this high level fine dining setting because of the customer expectations and because of the quality of the food that they produce. Well, the opposite of true, because the opposite is the true, because there is so many of these techniques and these little tips and tricks that are now fairly common that originate from those restaurants. It is those high-level restaurants that have been pushed by their financial circumstances most often to maximize the use of every ingredient. So a margin in most of the 3 Michelin star restaurants is very thin. It's very small. So they have to be like extra resourceful and very mindful about how they use their ingredients. So they figure out all of these little ways that are now like common, pickling, fermenting, and etc. of even the byproducts to so say, and and that has become the standard. So all of these things that we sometimes don't even realize actually come from those parts and those types of restaurants and those types of kitchens. So there's a lot of takeaway in that it can be done in any kind of setting. It's not limited to a certain or a particular type of restaurant or cuisine. But my other personal takeaway is like it's where I serve the way that I work. So it's all about the system that they run, the being extremely organized, being extremely efficient, being extremely mindful of your environment, and just really run a super organized and efficient environment.
In your journey, you have been in not only many different restaurants, but also you've been in different countries. And I believe that therefore you had the chance to also explore and experience other cultures. What differences you noticed on how different cultures approach to food waste in the kitchen?
Well, when I'm in the western part of the world, in Europe somewhere, and then I talk about these recipes of like watermelon rind chutney, salted radish leaves, and like pineapple skin fermented drink, and all of these like products made from what we call the byproducts. Then the chefs are like, oh, wow, like it tastes like that. I didn't know that it can taste this good. I didn't know we can use this. I didn't know it's similar to that. When I go to the eastern part of the world, I spent a good amount of my time in Southeast Asia, for example. When I talk like Indian chefs, it is their mother's recipe, the watermelon rind chutney. If you go to Emirates, then they primarily use radish leaves over the radish that we know. The radish leaf is the main product there, not the root. So when you go to the eastern part of the world, it's their normal, it's standard. There is nothing strange or weird about it. Like Indian cuisine uses so much of watermelon rind and banana skins. Mexican cuisine or like Central American cuisine uses the pineapple skins for fermenting the tepache, for example. There are these different cultures that use all of these byproducts by standard. And I think it's us in the Western that we are spoiled with the abundance that we have here. So we kind of have the luxury to say that this is waste and this is not waste. While when you go to the Eastern world and look back a couple decades of how the things were functioning there, it's completely normal. That it's like they are not trying to reduce waste. It's just another ingredient that has its own qualities and their nutritional values, and they want to use it. So why would they waste it? So that is the biggest difference there.
I agree with you that for sure there must be a part of looking at food as you have to make the most of it in a lot of countries around the world. But for what you mean, no, for what you see, like they are maybe not as spoiled with the abundance, and therefore they see in many things that we would consider waste, they see a resource, to get more food. But at the same time, it's also curious because as much as Europe in the late 100, 200 years has had a great abundance of food, we also come from moments where a great part of population, I would not going to say, I don't know what terms we can talk about poorness, but I'm talking about poverty in middle age and in modern. So there is also a culture there that could have in some way grown, how do you call it? Yeah, a situation, an environment that wants people to use as much as they can of the food. Actually, in some way happens with the meat. For example, in Spain, we have, I don't know, how many dishes that use all the parts of a pig, because it's like, yeah, you don't waste anything, and when you have the bones, then you put it in a broth, no? For example, after the Civil War in Spain, a long time of poverty, it was really normal to eat the skin of the potatoes. And my grandmother, she was a kid, and she loved, or she thinks that was nice. And when she told my great grandmother to make it, my grandmother was like, no, we're not going to do that, because for my great grandmother, that meant that it was something that you can only eat when you were poor. And but then I see that in some way that has not stuck as much in the gastronomy or in the culture as has done it in Eastern or in Latin American countries, as for what you tell. So I'm just wondering if a part of the spoil of abundance, there is something else cultural, maybe in matter of religion or in philosophy of life, that has affected the way of that we look at certain resources and others.
Yeah, I agree with you because of course that's true. Like if you go and ask our grandmothers about zero waste cooking, then there's gonna be like, yeah, what are you talking about zero waste? Like everything is zero waste by nature, right? Like that's how we do things. But
Yeah.
I don't have an answer of why that hasn't stuck in Europe or Western part. I would need to be like an evolutionary expert,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't know why is it not like that. But I can tell you that it's not like that in most of the places. In most of the countries that I go to or the people that I talk to, it's kind of, yeah, we know that it has been there like 100 years ago or so, like it was normal, but it got lost in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I get it. I get it. Then, but maybe this can be curious because we are talking about ways of thinking. So we're talking about the philosophy, and you often speak about challenging how we think about food. Can you elaborate on how this philosophy underpins on your work and how shall we change the way that we think about food?
We just really need to stop dividing products into byproduct and main product because it's us who decide that. Like nature didn't grow any given vegetable as this is going to be waste and this is for you to eat. It doesn't grow like potato doesn't grow like that. If you dig a potato from the ground, it's one piece. And then we peel it. It's us humans who separate it. Like this is gonna be the peel, and I label it. This is waste. I don't want that. It's a decision-making process. We decided that it's going to be waste. Well, it's us who decided. You know, it doesn't. Nature that haven't decided.
Yeah.
If I pull out a carrot from the ground, it's attached to its tops. Like it has leaves. So and then I chop the leaves off, and then I gotta call it. Okay, this is waste. I don't want that, and I only want that. Why? You know why? It's just a different part of the same product that has its own separate qualities and uses. And oftentimes much more nutritional value than what we tend to call as the main product.
In the skin stuff, yes. The funny thing is that I'm laughing, like when you explain it, I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like nature probably didn't decide that this is waste and that is what we should eat. That's what we do. But like, although it sounds like such an easy answer, that like, yeah, anyway, I will probably not take the action now on like maybe do something with my skin because there are other factors that I take into my decision. Like, yeah, I don't have the time, or like there are other hurdles that you come up with.
Mm-hmm.
How do you tackle that? Or like, how can I elaborate more strategies or like thinking to reduce it, or in the end, like say like, yeah, but I mean, it will not cost you more time because you can do X with it, or
There is a difference about how we approach this in a domestic setting in our home or how we approach it in a professional cooking. There are slight differences in those approaches. However, like you want to stick to the professional cooking side or to the domestic, right?
wow. This was for myself, so then actually to the domestic. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So the difference at home is that we work with a multitude of ingredients in very small amounts, you know, compared to a restaurant where you work with where you have a set menu, for example, and you have a large amount of ingredients in large quantities work produced on daily basis. So at home, I might cook a different dish every day or every night or a few times in a week. I'm gonna have a bigger variety of products in very small handful amounts. The easiest way that we can do at home is to use that the byproduct of skin in the same way where we use the other parts of the product. So use it in the same dish in the same way. To not look at it as this special thing that has to be turned into a brand new product on its own, but try to use it at the same time as you are using it. So what if you would not peel the potato, for example? If you cook your potatoes or bake your potatoes with the peeler, just wash it, scrub it, and it goes in the oven. Don't separate it. Yeah.
Yes, yes, but that we do like that product. I think like a lot of people will do that part. But like, let's talk about like a cabbage. Most of the part I will throw, like the outside I throw away, or like fennel. Also, I will cut parts off, and then I use yeah, like I will not use everything. Like the carrot, carrot. If you boil it, you're not gonna put the green part with the boiling water.
So when I buy carrots, for example, with the carrot tops attached, then what I really get is this super aromatic, fragrant green herb that I have there. So when I make a carrot dish for myself, then like let's take an example. I'm cooking a carrot dish, and then I'm gonna make like a sauce next to it. So I'm using another ingredient in my sauce or in the salsa. Maybe I have a parsley, maybe I have chives, maybe I have other ingredient that I'm gonna use. What if I would have not bought that other ingredient and I would use the carrot top in place of that? So what if I use my carrot tops for a salsa, for example, or for a pesto or something that goes along that dish? So I'm not actually creating like a new product that I would not have been doing otherwise, but I am just replacing an ingredient in the other part of the dishes that I'm preparing. Or I can save it for tomorrow in my fridge, and then maybe tomorrow I'm cooking something else where I can just quickly chop on my chopping board and goes into the salad and it's there. So we have this kind of belief, whether in home or whether in restaurants, that just because it is a different product or like a byproduct of the main product, that it needs to receive this special treatment. It can receive the special treatment and it's good, but it's not a requirement for that. So it doesn't have to. So it's same story with the cauliflower leaves, which is a very big part of the cauliflower head that you buy by weight. So there's a lot of cauliflower leaves attached to one cauliflower head, for example.
Yeah.
But there is 3 times more nutritional value on that in that cauliflower leaf. So what if we look at it in a way that when I'm using my cauliflower leaves, I'm not trying to reduce my food waste. I'm not doing it for the sake of reducing food waste, but I'm trying to maximize the nutritional value of my dish. I'm trying to make a delicious salad, something versus something steamed. So
yeah,
yeah,
I get that. Yeah.
Just use it in the same places. Or like easy things like leeks, for example. So many people don't use that dark green part of the leeks, which is again the most delicious, most nutritious. So if I'm making like roasted leeks or like leek soup, then put that whole thing into the same place. If I'm making a cauliflower soup and I'm not really sensitive about it being like pure white, then why don't I chop all the leaves into that as well? If I'm making roasted cauliflowers, then why don't I chop up these cauliflower leaves and put them on the same tray and roast them together?
Yeah, good question. It's like programmed in the way how we look at what you said. Like the other thing, like I also had a discussion with a colleague last time, and he mentioned one thing was quite funny about food waste. But we have like here in the Netherlands, you can go to the supermarket and buy a package of cut cabbage.
Yeah,
right?
So that,
like, he said, like for instance, it's better to buy those bags because you're not gonna waste that much of the bag, but you're gonna waste more for like if you buy like a whole iceberg, you're gonna waste more of that probably because it's staying longer in the fridge and it will rotten on a certain time. People will forget it. There are like other things, and it's like that is mainly most thrown away because you also cut out parts. Then if you buy just a bag and you use it fully. How do you look at that? Like, is that not the solution to reduce the waste in the end because it's already created in such a way that we will make the full potential out of it in the kitchen?
I would encourage to eat all the food that we buy and not unnecessarily increase the plastic waste on the other side again. And also, if we buy like these chopped ingredients that are readily prepared, then we really need to use it most likely on the same day or next day at worst. So if we are sure that if I'm living on my own, for example, and I only need a small amount, then okay, I can understand that it might make sense, like because I'm gonna use the same day, I only need one portion from that. But if I live with my family or I'm cooking for multiple people, for example, like I will certainly choose a one whole head of lettuce over something that is being chopped, because as soon as you chop it, nutritional value is decreasing, the flavor profile is changing, and the shelf life is reducing as well. So you really want to buy it, go home and use it. Because if that's not the option, then you will be always better off with the whole product. And instead of leaving it like rotten in your fridge or like going away, just like really think about it like, okay, like I have this whole head. It's more than one portion that I need for today. Can I plan a dish for tomorrow as well? Something from that? Can that be put in the freezer? Can it be extended in some way? Can I do something better with it? I know that this supermarket packaging is really impractical for some people in many ways, especially when you cook in small portions. But I don't think that preparing or chopping these sometimes ridiculous things in bags that I have seen in supermarkets is a solution to a food waste.
But actually, there is something that in my mind I'm trying to because something in my mind is like counteracting it. That you say that, for example, the back of the leek, that is the most nutritious part. I don't know if you also say that the more flavorful, but maybe I made that up. But the thing is that in the end, the way that we cook these things come from actually a big tradition, no? And of course, there is a moment where, in some way, we divide it between good ingredient and bad ingredient, or good part of the vegetable and bad part of the vegetable. But I guess that comes from somewhere, no? And I guess that maybe it's harder to eat, or maybe it's not so delicious, because otherwise, why would anybody just decide that all of a sudden that is bad? I guess that there must be a reason behind that, no?
Sometimes the reason can be a viral TikTok video, you know? So these
Yeah.
reasons that humans have to do something are oftentimes completely illogical. So how many beliefs that we had, like when I was growing up, my parents or my mother would tell me to not eat the watermelon rind because my stomach is going to hurt. Where did that come from? You know, that's what I was told as a child, to not eat the watermelon rind. Don't eat the white part because it's bad for you. Who said that? You know, the neighbor said to a neighbor, and that someone misunderstood. Someone said something, I overheard it. Someone said that. Let's just spread the word. Now the whole village doesn't eat, and then the 2 villages don't eat watermelon rinds, and then there is 3 villages don't eat watermelon rinds, and then half the country doesn't eat watermelon rinds because someone somewhere said that, like, oh, they're not good for you.
Yeah, that's
so there is a lot of these little things, and it's particularly easily spread because now we have the internet connection. So now we are way more connected globally than we have ever been before. So misinformations are spreading more fast, but luckily also the good information is spreading more fast. This is also a problem in the industry where one chef has said something. So this is how I learned it when I was young, and now I just stick to that. And this is something that we see in the industry. I have been taught this way, so it must be true, right? Well, oftentimes, no.
Yeah, but for example, I was also, I mean, that is a really good answer, I have to say. But I was thinking, for example, the case of the hummus. For the masters, I remember one of the projects I was creating was a hummus, and one of the things that recipes would tell you normally is you have to get rid of the skin of the chickpea, because that would affect the smoothness of the result. I mean, it's actually true, no? It happens.
It is,
yeah. So what happens with those things that actually maybe you say, okay, now for the creation of the hummus, I have to get rid of this skin that probably is a part of also with a big nutrient profile. Then what do you do with those moments where you really have to discard a part?
That's the opportunity to look at those parts of ingredients, like, okay, now because I don't have the option to use it in the same place where I use the main product, what else can I do with it? What can I use it for? What new thing can I do it? Or what new thing I can create from it? It's same with the potato peels, basic ingredients. If I do a mashed potato or a potato puree, I probably don't want peels in it, especially in a restaurant. I do mine with peels at home because I don't mind that profile, and I like that chunky bits of skin in it. But when you're in a restaurant, you probably want to serve a silky smooth potato puree. So now you have to peel the potato because you don't want that in there. So the question is, what is the opportunity with the potato peel puree, with the potato peel basically, and what new products I can turn it into? And the best way to tackle this is to look at products that I'm already creating, and the question to ask is, which products I can replace with that byproduct that I'm using? You know, that is the easiest thing. There is so many things that we can do with the potato peel, and just because it's not required in the main product that I'm creating, it doesn't mean that now it has become worthless, because I have still purchased it intact in one piece. It still has financial value and nutritional value as well as its whole flavor.
On this, Vojtech, but you already give a bit of a little introduction, but where do you get your creativity from? It's a super broad question, but
from the bin. From the bin. I always say that, like, I find everything in the bin. You know, like, you open the bin and you look at it like you will be looking into your fridge, what to cook with. You know, so not literally, you know, like I don't take things out of the bin and cook with them, but I look at what has gone into the bin and what I can prevent next time. What is it that I could use this products next time for, like how much flavor is in my bin. You pick the bin up in your hands and you see like, damn, it's like 20 kilo of products, like how much could I do with that?
I guess it's also now fair to ask you, because you mentioned how to apply this philosophy when you were cooking it in your household. But then how is this different to a restaurant then?
A restaurant has a better opportunity to create products and or upcycle ingredients because they use products in large quantities. So and consistently. So I have a set menu. I have an a la carte menu, and it's not changing for months or sometimes for a year. So if I put potato puree on my menu in January, for example, and I know that this is my menu for next year, then I know for a fact that every day I will have, say, 10 kilos of potato peels consistently created. It will be there every day. That's not the case at home. If I have potato puree today, I'm not gonna have it every day for the rest of the year.
No.
But in restaurants you have a menu, or you know what you're cooking every day. So if you have the same byproducts every single day being produced, so you really need to look at what those byproducts are, what the financial value is, and what the financial opportunity to monetize those byproducts is really on the menu for you. So if I know that I will have A and B byproducts on my menu, then I really need to look into that. Like, how can I incorporate it back into the menu? How can I use it? How can I start needing it and making it the default part of my mise en place every day?
Yeah, that on this we can go deeper into this, because I think you wrote one thing as well as a book called Surplus, the food waste guide for chefs, actually. But you don't want to call it actually waste in a general, but the thing is, it must be the question. I have two questions on this. Like, what motivated you to write Surplus? Because firmly, from your experience, you saw that there's like probably the knowledge missed at chefs to see it differently. Maybe that goes into what you already said, the philosophy and the thinking of the way. And then I also want to ask, like, could you discuss maybe a bit of key strategies from the book that any chef can implement to reduce their kitchen waste?
That book it wasn't really planned that, hey, like, I gonna go and write the book. Like, it came to me at a certain time when I was like, there isn't really anything like that on the market in general. And if there are chefs looking to do that, then there is no resource for them. And it started as a collection of ideas on how to use byproducts. I have later turned it into a full book, basically. So the idea that I was writing the book with is to give chefs some sort of a resource where they can see of how they can use their products that they have in their kitchens, how can they limit the byproducts, and what is kind of the mindset behind it that requires that. So I really wanted to put something together that is easily accessible for anyone around the world, that anyone can buy and read, and anyone can see that, to have some kind of an introduction to this topic of what does it take to reduce the food waste in a restaurant. And well, that book isn't like a step-by-step guide that will lead you through of what you need to do to prevent your food waste. It's more like an introduction to the concept and the idea, with like a bunch of practical tips of how to actually pull this in any kitchen. But the biggest takeaway is that we need to shift the mindset in terms of what is a byproduct and why do we call it a byproduct? Why do we call something waste? And how we can use it. Because I believe that every chef is very creative and they know how to cook. So I don't need to really, it's not a cookbook. There are a few like sample recipes, but it's not about like this is a dish and this is how to do it. It's just an example, because I believe that every chef knows how to cook or what is it that they want to achieve with a particular ingredient. We just need to really open up that kind of a conversation to shift the mindset in terms of how we use our ingredients and to bring it back into the kitchens and make it a standard default.
I'm just wondering, when we talk about food waste or like zero waste in cooking, a lot of times I guess I tend to be not so optimistic on the fact that we can get rid of food waste completely. I don't know if you see it different, Vojtech, but how do you see this evolving in the future? Do you believe that we can reach a moment where at least this mindset is more normal in gastronomy, and, for example, restaurants see the opportunity? or do you believe that there's still a lot of way to go?
I believe that there is still a lot of way to go, but there is a lot of progress that has already been done, because I see a major shift in terms of food waste and the food waste approach in many big hospitality businesses around the world. Like there are major international hotel chains that are starting their food waste policies and the new food waste standards that they have in the industry. And there are many other restaurants and caterers who do the same. There is so much that is being done on that topic. And not everything is about creating new products from the byproducts, but there are many different techniques or tactics to tackle the food waste in the industry, because food waste is created in different ways. Like if you look at food waste of the production, that's one thing. There is also plate waste, there is storage waste, there is spoilage, there is agricultural food waste as well, which is completely different again. There is so many things, but from my experience and what I see is that there is so much going on already. There is so much that is being done on that. So I'm aware that there is a long way to go, but I'm also very optimistic about that change, and I know that it is a completely solvable problem, because it's kind of a stupid problem to have to, so much resources goes into that and then we waste it. So I'm 100% sure that it is a solvable problem.
Yeah, I hope it is, but over the years it actually increased, right? So although we might see like
it increased because the consumption increases. We are increasing our consumption and we are not reducing our byproducts at the same time in some ways. So hence that means that waste increases as well. But there are so many other places where the food waste is being decreased, where particularly the hospitality industry, where the food waste is actively being decreased every day. And there are so many good results I see, and also from my work and from the other people that I work with.
Yeah. One of the things that lately I've been more concerned and reading about is that probably, in my opinion, one of the biggest crises there is in the food system and in the food industry is the decrease of home cooking. There is more and more people relying on other options. Myself, I am not any saint in that sense, but prepare meals, food delivery, or eating out from time to time, and therefore I believe that home cooking is really important in order to achieve also lesser waste, because when you cook something, you have more appreciation. When you have put time into something, you have more appreciation, and you value more the fact that, okay, let's not waste this because I already used. I spent my money. I had to go to somewhere, buy the ingredients, and prepare the whole. How do you foresee the future of home cooking? Because I know that it's a topic that is not so much talk, but in some way people is still concerned about it, because this is a not, in my opinion, not enough talked problem.
Mm-hmm. But home cooking, it's a natural thing for us. We have to feed ourselves in some way. So we have the luxury of not having to do that, because we have the opportunity to kind of purchase a ready-made meal somewhere else. So there's a luxury in some way, and I understand that point of not having time and space to do that by yourself is completely valid. Like, because we live a different life than we used to, like decades ago. But I do think that there is an opportunity for us to include it in some way in our lives as well. It does not have to mean that it's the only way of reducing waste, because even if I buy my food somewhere else, it means that I have spent even more money on that. So I might as well want to finish my meal that I have ordered and not waste it. And always what is a good thing to do is that to actually spend your money at places which has some sort of sustainable practices, or are like zero waste if possible, or doing something about that, rather than a random corporate fast food chain, for example, which does nothing on that topic. So it's really like being mindful of where our money is being spent and who do we support as businesses, because on the other hand, any given business has big impact in the changes that they make, and very impactful. I think that every business activity has a good opportunity to actually do a positive impact, whether reducing food waste or doing something else, compared to the multiple small actions that we might take at home but might not take at home. So just supporting good businesses is a good first start in there. And then, of course, whether we cook at home or we don't is again up to personal circumstances.
Yeah, of course.
Unless you can only go to that restaurant in London where they are like the first zero waste restaurant where they actually don't have any bins.
Yeah, been there?
I mean, that is a good concept. But the only thing is that it is actually, on the one hand, it's very cool to see that this happening. But on the other hand, you also, with Vojtech, is like, yeah, why should this be a trend, or like why should this be a thing, right? Why should this restaurant should say themselves like we are zero waste? Like actually everyone should be a zero waste in a sense, or trying at least to.
There shouldn't be any zero waste restaurants in the world. There should not be a
Okay.
zero waste restaurant. It should
You
be
said
a restaurant.
it's zero
It should
waste.
be called a restaurant, and the zero waste should be a default. So right now we don't call restaurants as wasteful restaurant. We don't say that I'm going to this wasteful restaurant. So also there should not be as such a thing as a zero waste restaurant. I understand the point of it and the reason to highlight all of that is great. But at some point in the future, I think that we should just revert back to like, okay, I just run a restaurant, right? And of course, I don't produce any waste because I run a business where I sell food. So I don't want to put my money in a bin. So I'm naturally zero waste by design without the need to highlight that fact. So I think that's
Yeah.
really where the future should be.
You know what I found quite interesting, and also now thinking about it, is that chefs wants to be very creative, right? And I think there are even more ways to be creative if they're gonna see the product as one thing that they could use. Or am I wrong? Like they're actually quite limiting themselves and just throwing away a lot of parts of a food of an ingredient of wait, if you throw parts away from a carrot, you're just limiting yourself to the applications that you could get out, right?
Yeah, but if you gotta go and talk to the first chef that you come across in terms of reducing their food waste, then there is a 99% chance that their first objection is going to be that they don't have time for it. Because there is this massive misconception in the industry that this is going to take away more time from me. You know what? Because we have this kind of a thinking that we only deal with food waste once it has been created, as in terms of reducing something that has already been done, rather than the prevention of thinking about something that I'm about to do and then changing that. So that conversation really needs to change that we have in the industry.
Yeah, and I also understand that for many chefs, also there must be a proof time that is, or that it must come from other people rather than from them, in a sense of there are restaurants that are really creative and they try always to do the best, but there are also restaurants that their menu is based on trying to look into more traditional and giving people things that they already know. No, so as long as maybe a pesto using carrot leaves is really nice, but maybe until people is used to a certain flavor or a certain texture or a certain whatever, it happens that they still prefer a normal pesto, no? So that and it's a recipe that maybe still requires certain amount of food waste. But I believe that it's just a matter of time and people stepping in and trying to take the lead into this.
If you look at the fermentation and everything fermented, like how big it has grown over the past decade
Indeed.
or so. Like there is almost every restaurant has something fermented on their menu now. Like everyone is fermenting. Like, and it hasn't been done like 20 years ago. It was like completely brand new. So it has found its way into being the normal presence on our menus. And I think that this is true for everything that we consider normal right now. So the normal that we are going to have in 5 or 10 years can be different from what it is now. We just need to keep making those tiny baby steps towards that goal.
We're excited to announce that we are official media partners with Future of Protein Production event in Amsterdam between October 23rd and 24th. Don't miss out. Use the special discount code that we leave in our description to join us in this groundbreaking event. Actually, you were mentioning that other cuisines like Asian cuisine, Southeast Asian cuisine is already are much more advanced than in Europe, but precisely in the last 5-10 years, we have seen a growth of the influence of Asian cuisine or gastronomy is rising in Europe, and maybe it comes from there precisely that these can take off.
Well, I heard, for instance, that the government, if we talk about South Korea with kimchi, for instance, they really actively pushed for that as like their, let's say, their marketing towards like K-pop and all these things, including food as kimchi, also like to show around.
Yeah. Kimchi is like a national thing. I have never been to Korea, but I have heard a lot about it, and I know a few Koreans as well. Like there is such a thing as the kimchi fermenting fridge. It's the device that most of us have probably never seen in the Western, but it's part of every household in South Korea. Like everyone has it. It's just that you have a fridge at home, then they have that kimchi. Everyone makes their own kimchi. It's like the most normal thing there. So it's really important to include the positive impact things in the pop culture as well, which is not being done in the Western part of the world. I feel like that we are including the opposite.
Yeah, I believe that 15 years ago, not everybody had, or not a lot of people would have a sushi rolling mat at their house, and now it's easily bought in, at least in the Netherlands, in any supermarket you can buy one to do sushi at your home. No, so that is that. That is like what I see. That precisely, maybe as you said, that other gastronomies seem to be more advanced in that sense. That maybe from there they also bring these ideas that kind of set up better in the popular culture.
Everything can be changed. What's normal is normal right now. It doesn't have to be in a year.
Exactly. Hey, Vojtech, before we finish this, is there something we didn't talk about, but that you would like to leave with our audience about creating a more zero waste chef mindset, changing it to the normal? Let's say it like that.
Question everything.
Question everything.
Yeah. Question everything.
Then there's always this ending where we give the guests the chance to ask a question to us, because we fired you with a lot of questions. So it's now your chance, Vojtech. What kind of question do you have for us?
What's in your food bin right now?
In my food bin? That is a good question. That is, I don't think food. Well, maybe banana peels. I have to confess. Maybe run out of banana peels, but not so much food. I am famous between my friends because I try to prevent as much food waste as possible.
That's great.
Chaco can tell.
I eat everything.
Even the banana peel.
No, that does.
No,
so
I am still in.
What's on table?
Yeah,
What's on table?
Level one is still of trying that everything that is normally eatable, but I have to move to level 2 of exploring that.
For me, I just cut like a pear, and I remove like always the top, but then I always take a bit of fresh as well with it, and you remove the inside, right? So that is now in it because I didn't eat that much.
But that you don't want to eat that stem part of the pear,
No, it's also
it becomes an organic waste, so that's good.
Yeah, then you can leave a couple messages to us like, okay, so with the banana peel you should do this, with the pear you should do
Yeah, I'm gonna say like, this is what came out of this was now thrown in my bin. What can I do?
You can. I had a LinkedIn post not a long time ago about banana peel.
Yeah, we'll check it out.
Or, I mean, Vojtech, I'm giving you an idea here. You should create an app that you could go take a picture to your bin, say, okay, for next time, what can
this can be done.
artificial intelligence recognizing what is there. Like next time, what shall I eat with this? And then, boom.
Yeah.
Do you know this company? It's called Orbisk. You should contact them. They make already pictures from the bin. Okay, you know them already. So it's just.
Okay, then Vojtech, the last question that we make to all the guests is, what is your favorite food or dish?
My favorite food or dish, I really love these one-pot style home-cooked dishes that I have grown up on, of course. So I really love a Savoy cabbage. We make like a Savoy cabbage stew. It's very simple, very plain. Just like onion, potatoes. Sometimes there is some meat in it. I use tofu in it. I love it.
The best for the winter, indeed.
Are you going to share these recipes as well online? Because now the full let's say your recipes, the loved ones from your past. Are you going to share them as well?
I will be sharing recipes at one point in some way, but I know that I'm very behind on my recipe sharing, and a lot of people and chefs ask for it. So I'm working on something that there will be like
okay.
Keep
us updated.
Very good. So that is coming.
Yeah.
In 2 years.
So hopefully less than that.
Less than that. Nice, nice. Is there something else what audience can think about what you're gonna set up in the coming year?
In the coming few months, I'm creating a brand new food waste course for chefs. all about food waste prevention, simple tips and tricks, and tools for chefs to reduce their food waste in professional kitchens.
Nice. I think that's a good one because the audience and there will be chefs as well in it. Vojtech, thanks for this conversation. And unless that Anders, do you have another ending question? No, right? I have to say it was a really nice talk. I think you opened our mind to think already differently. That's a first step, right? Now I have to actively use it and do it again tomorrow because that's repetition. Otherwise not. And I hope that the audience also is going to dive into that and find out more. And in the end, in this way, I think the biggest impact we actually can make as individuals to is having that mindset to change that and eventually in that way we reduce so much waste. So thanks. Thank you, Vojtech, also for your work. It's very inspiring to see it. I love it to see it because I come from a father. My father was a teacher for upcoming chefs. I was always cooking in our house, so it's always good to see others inspiring with their recipes.
Thanks a lot, and thank you for having me on this podcast. It was good.